has who has sponsored this given $1 million gift to live the longest was one of our major investors for the Indigo campaign, and he was wonderful to help us reach our goal. But there were actually, I think, 100 something people that did donate money. So the problem though, it really never caught on and went viral. I was thinking maybe the Indigo campaign might have gone viral, but in the end of the day, it's still a little bit of a weird idea. So I think a lot of people were skeptical of actually having a coffin bus. In fact, I'd say the transhumance community is pretty split on whether it's a good thing. But the problem is most of the people in the transhumance community don't understand media. They don't understand that we're too small of a community to actually get out there broadly in major media without doing something so provocative. It has to be provocative. So this has been part of the problem with transhumanism, is how do we spread transhumanism without doing something very provocative? Well, you probably really can't. So you have to do something like the coffin bus. And if you do it, well, I think you're going to get some attention. And that attention spreads transhumanism.
And talk about the split for a second, about like what are the different points of view about the coffin bus.
Well, I think to begin with, a lot of people are skeptical of my overall presidential campaign. And part of the problem is that they're not sure transhumanism should be politicized at all. And also, because of my novel, The Transhumanist Wager, which is very aggressive and activist-oriented, and because I have a way of writing articles that are very controversial, I think there's a number of people in the community that are not necessarily on board with my presidential campaign. However, the community is so small that it's totally irrelevant. I do not take into account anything in the community at all anymore. I do not listen to people on Facebook. I just do not pay attention. I pay attention to what I'm trying to do. And what I'm trying to do is spread a philosophy that makes people live a lot longer. Yeah, I absolutely, at this point, I've actually become very alienated from the small community online of transhumanism. Just simply don't deal with them. People get mad at me saying, oh, you're running the party, or oh, you're doing this or doing that. And it's like, you know what? The Transhumanist Party has $1,100 in donations in 1 year's time. Do not tell me what to do when nobody is giving me money. If I have to support my party and I have to support my campaign and I have to buy my bus, I'm going to do things my way. And that's the bottom line. And this is what the bus is about. It's a way to spread transhumanism so that the world can learn about the need to spend money and on science and technology to live indefinitely. And if the community likes it or dislikes it, I just don't care. There, you have me saying it now. And you can tell I've become alienated very strongly from a lot of people online. I just am absolutely not running a campaign based on anyone in our community giving me advice anymore. I've left that completely behind.
And do you have supporters? Can you
Sure.
move around? Yeah. And what about the supporters online?
Well, so there's a huge amount of supporters we have online, but I think what's happened, we have a bunch of older, kind of better-known transhumanists who are very upset that my campaign has sort of become so prominent in the movement, and that's upset them. And because some of them are the leaders, they've either won't write articles about it or are writing me personally emails telling me to keep a lower profile or things like that. But the reality is I'm not concerned with the community. I've never been concerned with the transhuman community. That's just not my goal. My goal is simply to get more money into the hands of scientists and engineers to stop aging, to overcome death. And that's the big thing. We have 100,000 people in America that may support transhumanism, or whatever, 150,000, but the numbers are too small to be concerned with them. The real numbers are those many, many millions around the country that can convince their politicians and elect into office politicians who will spend money on transhumanism so you and I and everyone else can live longer. That's my goal. It's not listening to a handful of people. It's not listening to what maybe seems like the right way for the movement. Those things are irrelevant. I simply don't want to die. And I'm going to do whatever I can in order to make sure that I do my best effort towards that singular goal.
And is there any sort of prominent people in the community that you feel supported by? Or like, I would think like Aubrey would be like, yeah, get more money for stop people from dying. Or like, there's got to be people that are like see what you're doing and.
Well, I think a lot of people in our community are supportive of what I'm trying to do, but I think what's happened is there's a sense of, well, it's become dominated by a wacky bus or a coffin bus idea, or it's become dominated by a presidential campaign that may not be representative of the community. But again, the community is just too small to make any impact in the real world. I've gone over this with the Transhumanist Party in the United Kingdom, where having 30 or 40 members is not going to make a difference. It's completely a waste of someone's time to spend a huge amount of effort to try to take 30 or 40 people and make something happen with that. It's just not relevant. What's relevant is a media campaign that will reach millions. And I'm hoping that the coffin bus over the next year will reach between 20 and 100 million people. And that means we're going to have a huge amount of influence going. And that's something. That's a real campaign that actually might change the way people feel about living, about dying, and about how much resources they should be putting into science and technology. Sorry, these are tough things to say on the record, but I've sort of had it with. I just barely even stay on Facebook anymore. I barely stay on any of those places because there's so many naysayers. There's so much negativity. It's just like, you know what? Just not concerned, not listening.
Well, the internet was made for trolls, I think.
Oh. It's just in the last few months, it's just started to drive me nuts.
Do you think any of that's like jealousy?
Oh, it's all jealousy. It's all jealousy from the elders. That's 100% what it is. I mean, I don't want to point it out, but it's exactly what it is. And it's not for me to decide whether that's right or wrong. It's only for me to do exactly what I want to do. And what I want to do is stop death. And I'm going to find the most expedient means that I can do given my resources and given my impact. And the coffin bus is the best thing that I could do given all those circumstances. And I think it's going to be a huge hit, whether or not the community likes it or not.
Because, some people, their way of doing things is to write a white paper or whatever, but if only, 50 people see that, then.
Well, that's been the problem with transhumanism forever, is 50 people have been seeing the things people are doing, and for 30 years the movement went nowhere. Now, all of a sudden, the movement is in mainstream media every single day. There are 3 or 4 original articles written about the Transhumanist Party and my campaign every day. We hit 3 million people last month, 4 million the month before, and we're at least going to hit 2.5 million people this month in impressions on some of the stuff that I've been working on. That is real progress. It's not 34 or 40 people, whatever. It's millions being hit by a message. And if they subscribe to that message, which many are, you can see the groups growing, you can see people talking about it, you can see major media picking up on what transhumanism is and starting to say, hey, this is interesting. That's a real impact. Eventually, when that takes a greater form, politicians will have to address it. Government will have to address it. More private companies will come out and address it. And that's how a very small organization can make a huge impact, by learning how to work within the media and spreading a message. We don't have the resources to do things that other parties can do. We don't have the resources to do the kinds of campaigns that another political party would be able to achieve. What we can do is hit home runs again and again in major media. And by doing so, we're just simply throwing these ideas, and people eventually swallow them. And eventually they're going to say, well, transhumanism is pretty cool. Why don't we support it a bit? And then we've started to win the war. And then people are going to start living longer because more and more resources are going to go into the fields. More and more people are going to say, transhumanism is something very interesting. We don't need to be afraid of it. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not. You're still going to embrace it. And this has been my overall goal, especially over the last year, as I've just become just a bit alienated from the community, where I'm just simply saying, you know what, I'm doing my own thing. And you can see it. That's why I'm working alone on my bus, because it's very much my own thing. There are probably people that would help, but it's like, I just can't. It's just too much work to organize people, to deal with different perspectives, all these different ideas. Listen, this is the Immortality Bus with Zoltan Istvan, and that's the way I've planned it.
Yeah, I suspect over time they'll come back around.
Yeah.
They'll sort of go where the tide goes,
Well, they have to. What's happened is I'm doing the traffic, 100 times traffic now of H+ and IET. There's no question. And the movement's different now because of that. And I think everyone realizes that. And if you want to keep up, maybe you could help me instead of leaving me essentially do everything on my own, when the goal is virtually the goal I have of living indefinitely, using science and technology to do so, is exactly the critical goal. In fact, I even formed the Transhumanist Party as a very centric party, despite the fact that I'm actually kind of libertarian leaning. But I did that because I wanted to make sure I included as many people as possible. So it's sort of been upsetting that I still get so much criticism about the party this, about the party this, or who's doing this, or who makes these decisions. Listen, the party is centric. It's not about decisions. It's about as many people as possible with one singular goal. But unfortunately, at least the reception I've received so far in the community has not been one of open arms. It's been one of skepticism. It's been one of disdain. It's been one of, this guy's got too much influence on the movement. And you know what? If you're going to treat me like that, I'm absolutely not interested in being part of that community. Gone. I would take transhumanism exactly where I want. I've been more aggressive in the media saying these things as I've had more and more people reaching out to me saying, what about all the splintering? And I'm sort of done with the splintering. I'm just done being that guy who's been trying to unite the community. It's just not a big enough community anymore. And I realized this from the Indigo campaign, incredibly disappointed. I mean, I got 40,000 people in my social media, and I was unable to raise more than a few $1,000s from various people. Why? Well, it turns out half the people don't actually even have $5 to donate, or they really dislike the campaign in itself. Well, whatever it is, it's just not important. The bottom line is I would fund it myself. I have the money. I'm glad a giant investor stepped in and saw what I was trying to do and supported a lot of it. And it's going to happen. And whether people like it or not, whether transhumanists subscribe to it or not, it's not important to me. I'm going to make the media events happen. I know exactly how to do it. They're going to be a big success, and it's going to spread the word. And those that get stuck in thinking transhumanism is some little academic thing are absolutely going to be left behind. And they